Okay, a pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this evening's webinar entitled Diabetes Awareness. I just want to confirm that everyone is hearing me. Is everyone hearing? Okay, good. All right, so my name is Asha Baksh, and I'm the Finance Manager of Canning's Employees Credit Union. Once again, it's my distinct pleasure to be the moderator for this evening's event. Diabetes is the 8th leading cause of death in the United States. It is also the #1 cause of kidney failure, lower limb amputations, and adult blindness. In the last 20 years, the number of adults diagnosed with diabetes has more than doubled. CECU has taken this initiative to host a webinar in conjunction with Victoria Clinic to bring awareness to our members about this disease known as the silent killer. So before I introduce our presenter, please allow me to share our house rules. Firstly, please note that all mics will be muted throughout the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session whereby everyone will get the opportunity to ask their questions. During the Q&A segment, if you have a question, please click the raise your hand button and your mic will be unmuted for you to speak. Alternatively, throughout the presentation, if you have a question, you can type it in the chat and we will address it at the end, which is during the Q&A segment. Today's seminar is expected to run for approximately about an hour. This seminar will also be recorded and the recording will be uploaded in the library section on CECU's website along with the presentation. So at this time, I take great pleasure in welcoming our presenter, Dr. Asante Van West Charles LeBlanc, who is a Cuban-born Guyanese mother of 5, wife, doctor, clinical densitometrist, and medical herbalist. Dr. LeBlanc's passion is to help guide individuals on their road to optimum health. So in her practice, she integrates complementary traditional medicine with conventional Western medicine. After losing her grandmother to cancer, she decided to do something more for persons affected by this terrible disease. So she began working with the Trinidad and Tobago Cancer Society, one of this country's longest-standing NGOs, and has been leading this organization as its chairperson for the past 5 years. She is the face and voice of the organization, working to change the landscape of cancer through screening and education in Trinidad and Tobago. Still, she has been making strides in taking the TTCS into new territories, pioneering an agenda for policy change in reporting the disease, and changing legislation to include vaping in the Anti-Tobacco Bill of 2009. Dr. LeBlanc loves reading, listening to music, dancing, and being around her family and friends. If you know her, she loves to laugh. One of her many goals is to promote healthy lifestyle and healing using Eastern and Western medicine. So at this point, I would like to welcome our presenter, Dr. Asante, and hand over this afternoon's session to her.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So, oh, thanks, Asha. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Sorry to be late. Unfortunately, the traffic in Trinidad, but I made it through. So great. We're going to start with diabetes. So I'm going to share my screen. Just going to share that. Right. So the topic today is diabetes, just sweet enough. So as Asha mentioned, diabetes is one of the leading causes of death and morbidity or illness in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean, in the region, and in the world. And it's one of our lifestyle diseases, or NCDs, or non-communicable chronic diseases. So what exactly are lifestyle diseases? They're just what you hear. They're diseases due to poor lifestyle. So it's any condition that's attributable, at least in part or thereof, to lifestyle choices or poor lifestyle choices, we should say. So examples include hypertension or pressure, diabetes or sugar, obesity or selective plumpness, heart disease, dyslipidemia or cholesterol, chronic lung diseases, and cancer. I always like to remind persons when I start a talk on what the definition of health really is. The definition of health is the balance of body, spirit, and mind. And we'll see why this is important as we go through this lecture or talk, webinar. What are lifestyle choices? When we speak about lifestyle choices, what are we really saying? When we speak about lifestyle choices, we're speaking about the diet, our exercise, our sleep mechanism, our sleep cycles, our stress coping mechanisms, our toxic habits such as drinking, smoking, alcohol intake. So those are examples of lifestyle choices. And of course, I put pictures. Who doesn't like a good burger, a beer every now and again, some good Chinese food, which may or may not be a poor lifestyle choice depending on how you look at it. So what are some of the facts when we talk about diabetes? It's one of the leading causes of death in the world, as we said, all NCDs and lifestyle diseases. 80% of the deaths in low to middle income countries. So that is where Trinidad and the Caribbean fits in. A quarter of the deaths worldwide before the age of 60 is due to lifestyle diseases. And more premature death and illness with disability is due to these diseases and in particular diabetes. It's economically crippling to all societies. Now, I'm sending these messages home to you, not to make it boring, but so we understand the burden of this disease, diabetes or sugar. And it doesn't discriminate really and truly. And the thinking of prevention being better than cure is definitely what rings true with all these diseases, and in particular diabetes, because primary healthcare prevention is the key to success in fighting this disease called diabetes. When we talk about primary healthcare prevention, what we're talking about is exactly this: education, understanding what we're talking about, understanding the numbers, knowing what we have to do as a population so that we really can avoid the complications of this disease. So diabetes, how do we diagnose somebody with diabetes? Basically, if we get a fasting blood sugar, so this is when somebody has fasted for only 12 hours, up to 12 hours, and we get a fasting blood sugar on 2 or more occasions of greater than 110 milligrams per deciliter, an HbA1c, which is a reading that we take, and it allows us to see our blood sugar control 2 to 3 months retrospectively, so before you actually took the test, if that is greater than 6%. And then a random blood sugar of 200. Now, I want you to understand something, because, for example, when we had COVID in its acute phase during the pandemic, or the acute phase of the pandemic, sometimes you would go in and they test your sugar when you had COVID or you were COVID positive, and your sugar would come up to be over 200. This happened to me personally as well. In that instant, it didn't cause me to be diagnosed as diabetic because we knew what was happening. First of all, I had the COVID infection. I was on multiple doses of steroids and so forth. So I want you to understand that if you do a random blood sugar and you have no other factor, no big infection going on, no extreme steroids on your body, no mitigating factors, that is when we use the random blood sugar of greater than 200 as a diagnosis. Diabetes, when your body can't metabolize sugar properly. So that means that our body, our blood sugar is controlled by our pancreas. Our pancreas is an organ that's in the body, in the back of the abdominal cavity. And through insulin and glucagon, 2 hormones, it controls our blood sugar. This is all done subconsciously, so you don't have anything to do with it. But what happens is our body will monitor the level of glucose in the blood, and then the pancreas will say, okay, let me put insulin or let me put glucagon, depending on the levels. Glucagon is to raise it, insulin is to bring it down. What happens when this mechanism doesn't work and we become diabetic? Why is it so important? Like, what is it? Is it just sugar? You're living with it? Because it's so silent, nobody really pays much attention sometimes to diabetes. But diabetes can lead to different complications, as Asha mentioned, which includes stroke, heart attack, blindness, kidney failure, heart failure, circulation issues, which is the darkening of the lower limbs, especially when you lose sensation in the feet, impotence, and infections, amongst other complications. The risk factors, which include your family history, it could include other diseases such as hypertension, obesity, cholesterol, and all poor stress coping, poor sleep cycles, plus poor lifestyle choices will ultimately or can ultimately end up in you having diabetes. There are two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is what we call insulin dependent, which means right off the bat, your body is not producing enough insulin, if any at all. Therefore, you need external sources of insulin or exogenous sources of insulin to control your blood sugar. And then there's type 2, which is non-insulin dependent, but that doesn't mean you may not need insulin. It just means that we have other forms of medication that we can use to help treat it. Now, type 2 diabetes is the one that is most related to poor lifestyle choices, where type 1 is mostly related to juvenile diabetes and is not really due to lifestyle choices and is also a part of a hereditary cycle. Type 2 can also be considered a type of an autoimmune disease. The good news is that diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, is preventable. And not all diabetes is equatable to death. Not all diabetes needs medication. But the key to that is understanding your body, ensuring you get checked out, understanding your numbers, and knowing when the correct intervention is needed. What are signs and symptoms of diabetes? Signs and symptoms include weight loss despite you eating well. You just drop in weight and everybody's like, oh, you're dropping a lot of weight. Increased appetite with weight loss is a sign. Increased thirst, or what we call polydipsia. Increased urination or polyuria. Impaired sensation in the feet or hands. You get pins and needles, strange, or you feel like you're walking on cotton, sort of thing. That could be a sign or symptom. Fatigue despite getting very good sleep. And you may also have weight gain. And those are basic signs and symptoms of diabetes. Risk factors. Risk factors include your family history, poor lifestyle choices, autoimmune factors, other lifestyle diseases, which I mentioned, such as hypertension, obesity, cholesterol, and so forth. Infections, major infections. So we did see a lot of patients coming out from COVID infections becoming diabetic. And the mechanism is still being researched. We're still trying to understand why that occurred, but we do see some patients who have been post-COVID infection, to mention one of the infections that we know, and they've become diabetic. And then polycystic ovarian syndrome, because this makes you insulin resistant. Your tissues are insulin resistant, which means the insulin, which when it's put out there by the pancreas, it's supposed to allow your tissues to absorb and take the glucose in so as to lower the blood sugar circulating. But if your tissues are insulin resistant, then they won't respond to insulin, and therefore they're not taking in the glucose, and therefore you're getting high blood glucose and you can become diabetic. Obesity. So I want to go through some of the other NCDs that are related. So obesity basically is when our BMI is elevated and it's above 27. What is your BMI? Your BMI is measured with your weight and your height, your weight in meters and your height in your weight in kilograms, and your height in meters. Well, we all know that obesity can creep up on us because selective plumpness is out there. All the ladies out there, when we hit in perimenopause, sometimes just stress, sometimes we just eat poorly for many reasons. And this is when the weight can creep up on us. The pound by pound creeps up on us. And the good news about obesity or selective plumpness is that it's preventable. And this is with us looking at what we eat, how we eat, the timing of how we eat, and most importantly, the portions of how much food we take in. There's a syndrome called Syndrome X, which is where obesity, diabetes, and hypertension are related. And long ago, well, not so long ago, because I'm not that old, It used to be that you were looking for that triad in certain patients. It's always good to know your numbers. Don't do crash diets and fad diets. Say no to them definitely, and just try to be as balanced as possible when it comes to your eating, your exercising, and your portion controls and the quality of food that you're having. Make sure that, and the thing, lifestyle disease. So it says it right there. It's part of your lifestyle, and it's something that you have to like. It's something that you have to incorporate into your lifestyle, and you have to say, okay, I'm willing to do this. And that is so, so important when we speak about these diseases now more than ever. Dyslipidemia, I bring this in because this is the metabolism of our cholesterol. And this also, along with obesity, hypertension, can lead to diabetes. But it's important to know your total cholesterol, your good cholesterol or your HDL, your bad cholesterol, which is your triglycerides and your LDLs, and understand those levels and know those levels, because we want to make sure that if we see those creeping up, then we can change our lifestyle, because all of these diseases are related and linked through lifestyle. So ideally, we want our total cholesterol to be below 200. Ideally, we want our good cholesterol to be above 45. We want our triglycerides, one of the bad cholesterols, to be below 150, and our LDLs, the other bad cholesterol, below 130. It's so, so important to understand those numbers, but I want to stick a pin here because I want you to understand that these numbers are not all and be it and end it all of our cholesterol profile, because you can have a total cholesterol of 220 and all your bad cholesterols are normal and your good cholesterol is elevated, and that's absolutely normal and you don't need any intervention. So there are the goals again that I mentioned. There you go, your total cholesterol, your LDLs, your HDLs, and your triglycerides. Now, if we have a diabetic patient with dyslipidemia or cholesterol, then we try to have a little tighter control, because the research is showing that if we have stricter control on our cholesterol, then that helps prevent the complications such as the heart disease and the heart failure and the kidney failure and the eye issues, blindness, and so forth, if we correct all of those. So it's all about tight control, and again relates to the syndrome X. These are just the other lifestyle diseases that we have to think about. So I am an integrative practitioner, and I like to think about holistic health. Diabetes is, when you think of diabetes, and I come from a family of diabetics, you must think of your blood sugar and think of your literal too much glucose in that blood, and therefore causing what we call microvascular, which is small vessel, and macrovascular, big vessel disease. And that is where the complications come in, because then the blood literally it flows slower. Think about it like that, almost, if you want to put it in perspective and you think of it from a picture standpoint, in terms of the blood just has so much sugar in it, and therefore that is the breeding ground for infections. It's a breeding ground for so many things, but it's also encouraging cholesterol plaque formation. It's encouraging so much things. It's actually affecting a lot of our processes as well in our body, and that is where the complications come in. So when we think of holistic health and healing, when it comes to diabetes, what are we talking about? Treatment for diabetes has to be holistic. And this means your lifestyle, where modification is key. And that means our diet, our exercise, our sleep cycles, our stress coping, understanding. But most importantly, it's so important these days not to overstress and overthink, but to have everything about moderation and balance in key. Because again, as I stated, this is a lifestyle disease, and you don't want someone forced into a corner and they're doing something that they just don't like, and therefore eventually they're gonna break out. They're gonna break away and eat badly. They're gonna smoke, they're gonna drink, they're gonna eat all the white flowers and the preservatives, and that is what we don't want. So it's about modification and balance and moderation. And then we have medication for diabetes, herbs and spices, and most importantly, encouragement not to give up, because it will always be a long road no matter when you're diagnosed. Yeah. So what steps do we take? Steps to take. So we're in the audience today. We're listening about diabetes. We haven't been for our annual checkup. We don't know. Or maybe we've had a health fair and maybe we got a sugar over 110 and maybe they said, go to your doctor. And we thought, nah, don't want to do it. Don't feel like I want to hear that. Christmas coming. I have punch of creme, pastels, ham, garlic pork, sorrel, and the list goes on. And therefore, we don't want to do it. But, I want to encourage you not to be afraid. Do not be afraid of the diagnosis. Do not be afraid of the numbers. And the steps to take include the first step is to visit your family physician every year and get your annual medical. Get tested. That is where we do your fasting blood sugar, we do your HbA1c, and we do your lipid profile. Those are key tests to be done if we want to diagnose diabetes or dyslipidemia, but then also your kidney and your liver function in order to make sure there's no damage occurring along with your urine as well. Exercise. I know everybody's going to go, oh God, here we go again. But it's important for you to move. Movement is key. And this means doing something. Again, here we go. Something you like, something you want to do, be it running, walking, a mixture of the two, boxing, kickboxing, swimming, triathlons. Choose your poison, but do it. And it should not be, I shouldn't have said choose your poison because I actually enjoy exercising and I think it actually helps because exercise does so much at so many levels of the body in terms of our cellular level, our stress coping, how we feel, our endorphins, and therefore helps from a holistic standpoint when it comes to treating any of these diseases and especially diabetes. Your diet, what should your diet be? So when I say your diet should be healthy and balanced, if I was to say, what does that mean to somebody? I don't know. Is Asha there? Asha, I'm going to pick on you just because I know you and you can unmic yourself fast. If I told you, tell me what a healthy, balanced breakfast is, what would you tell me?
Well, these days I've been trying. I have oats with some almond milk. I like to put some blueberries in and sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon.
You see? And do you have that warm or cold?
I like it a little warm.
Right, perfect. So Asha is a star girl today. She did well. Yeah, so that's great. But then suppose somebody doesn't like oats, you know what I mean? So you can have dal and rice with some, veggies. You can have kitchery. You can have eggs with whole wheat toast with peanut butter. So, but the key is to look at your proteins, to look at your carbohydrates, be it complex carbs, look at the quality of food, but it should not be something that gives you a headache. So Asha did brilliant there in terms of telling me what a good breakfast was, right? So we always have to look and make sure, and most importantly, don't not eat. You hear me? Diet don't mean not eating. Diet means eating properly and balanced. A patient once told me don't use the word diet because it has die in it. And so I try not to use diet, but inevitably we have to use it. But we want to make sure that, for example, my lunch should be a grilled chicken or grilled meat if I eat meat or fish with some beans if I want, a little piece or a sliver of carbohydrates, be it my complex carbs, be it whole wheat pasta, be it ground provisions, be it brown rice, some kind of carbs, and then your veggies. So your greens and your salads, and that is a lovely meal. But then a lot of people tell me, and then in the night, I just have a sandwich. But why are you having a sandwich in the night? Because that's just bread and whatever. So why are you not thinking of maybe some dal, some soup, if you want to eat light in the night, having something with much more protein or and nutrients versus just carbohydrates in the evening. So that's what we mean when we talk about healthy and balanced diets. Stop smoking for sure. Stress management. So this is where exercise ties back in. Having use of your counseling, your EAPs, you making sure that you can cope with your stress and that your coping mechanisms are strengthened, doing things like yoga, meditation to help with stress management, knowing your numbers, knowing your weight, your BMI, your fasting blood sugar, your HbA1c, and your cholesterol. Now, I may weigh a certain number and may not, and I may look great because I have muscle mass. So when I say know your numbers, I want you not to obsess about being 130 when you are 40 something years old and you come from a big bone family. You understand? So understand your weight and what you're comfortable with. And also we have to look at your BMI. So we ultimately want your BMI to be around 27, between 20 to 27. And if you go a little over, I always take it with a grain of salt and a pound of salt sometimes, because as mixed race people, our bones may be heavier, so we may go up in weight with that. So BMI, but we don't want it in excess of 28, 29 usually, right? So there we go. So these are examples. So pineapple, eat what's in season. Blueberries when in season. And we didn't grow up on blueberries and strawberries. So again, I tell people eat it when you have the urge and if you have a little bit of money in your pocket, Beans, the chana, the dal, the black beans, the lentils, the black eyed peas. Look, Asha's breakfast sorted here with her blueberries and her oats and so forth. Whole wheat bread, if we can bake, for us who can bake, going to the green markets and having our foods, our sweet peppers, all of these. And it's so important that we eat what is in season and we eat local foods as much as possible, but also understanding the local foods in terms of use of pesticides and so forth. What are the steps to take? Well, I spoke about the diet, the exercise, aerobic exercise. Ensure you get 3 days a week, minimum 30 minutes a day. Don't take it on. There you go. Reducing your alcohol intake. Some people like red wine. Again, this is just, but see your family physician. If you are diagnosed and you have an inkling that you're not feeling well, then what should you take to the doctor to help move along the process? A blood sugar diary. What is a blood sugar diary? This is where you take your fasting blood sugar and your blood sugar reading 2 hours after any meal, and you write it down for at least 5 to 7 days. And you take that with you to the doctor. And that blood sugar can be taken with the DiaScan machine. And so it's so important because that helps us as physicians to understand what your sugar is. Your sugar control is like before you eat and after you eat, and allows us then to see where we need to intervene, if at all, with medication. The diet. So a lot of people talk about eating for their blood type. They talk, but it's so important to take things in context. So eating for your blood type should tie into your ancestral heritage, where we're from, where we live now, family health issues, our sedentary lifestyle, or do we move around? What did we grow up on eating? Our metabolism. So we have to look at how we metabolize food, our exercise levels, as I told you, and our culture. So that is so important when we think about diet. So I can't come to, for example, go to a Tobagonian and say, I want you to eat pasta alone, like if you're from Italy. They grew up on blue food. And you can't go to Guyana, I'm a Guyanese, and tell me not to eat rice all the time. You understand? So we have to vary according to our culture, what we grew up on, what we're accustomed to, but also we have to look at right now, especially at the quality of food that we have as well on our tables. Then if you are diagnosed with diabetes and lifestyle, because we usually give a patient 3 months of a trial of good lifestyle. And if lifestyle doesn't work, well, then we can add medication. And medication can include any of these that I'm showing. But, people worry and they go, well, medication is bad and pharma, but sometimes you see remarkable reduction in the outcome of complications when we use medication. And so it's important to understand, for example, patients with PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome, we give them metformin not only to promote ovulation, but also to help with the insulin resistance. And then the oldest family of drugs, sulfonylureas, are like the glibenclamide, the Diaban, the Diamicron. We give patients that. We have to just be careful because they can get hypoglycemic or low blood sugars. Then there are newer drugs out, which are SGL2 inhibitors and DPP4 inhibitors, which are amazing could be a little costly, I'm not gonna lie, but so there are newer and newer drugs coming out. Then we have insulin, and now we have rapid insulin, intermediate insulin, long-acting insulin. So we have so much to offer when it comes to the holistic aspect of treating diabetes. And we don't always have to be on medication. It depends on what your numbers are, what your situation is as an individual. When I speak about complementary medicine, which is what I do, I bring the two branches of medicine together, being the Eastern and Western branches. And it's a holistic view of individuals for a better understanding of health and finding a more efficient and effective way of achieving healthier lifestyles. All that means is I'm blending the two branches because let's face it, most, if not all, medication came from herbs and plants. And therefore, if we combine that with healthier lifestyles, educating ourselves, doing everything that we need to do as part of the pillars, then we can combat this disease called diabetes. So herbs and foods that I definitely recommend to my diabetics if they're on and off medication, depending on their status, include cinnamon, neem, tulsi, fenugreek, or y'all call it methi hair, karaili, cucumbers, ginger, turmeric, dal, walnuts, to mention a few, breadfruit. So those are herbs, but these herbs and spices that are listed here, I definitely recommend in terms of helping to control or support, I should say, support the control of our blood sugar, along with better lifestyles, healthier lifestyles, all the pillars I just mentioned. And then if you need medication as well, then that helps. There's also gymnema, garcinia that help as well. So common factors in all lifestyle diseases, the common factors include diet, it includes exercise, or weight management, managing healthy weights, smoking, in fact, not smoking, or alcohol intake, our stress management, and all of that equals lifestyle modification if we look at all of them and choose healthier options when it comes to these elements. And that is key to combating diabetes. Diabetes is basically low-hanging fruit. There is no reason at this time that as intelligent people and proactive patients of this population that we should suffer complications of this disease, because we have the information and we have the tools and we can do it. And all we have to do is be proactive and do small steps that lead to huge, huge, huge positive impact on our lives. And that is so, so important. So your take home message today is check out your family physician, speak to them, understand your disease, ask the questions. Sometimes your diabetes or your blood sugar levels may be linked to something else. So it's not always that you are fully diabetic. So find out and let us look to see if it's just because of family history, your poor lifestyle choices, or is there something else promoting that ineffective blood sugar control. Your family physician is your guide to healthier lifestyles. He or she is your advisor to your screening tests. Know your digits, know your fasting blood sugar levels, know your HbA1c levels, understand lifestyle modification, and don't, think outside the box, go crazy, understand, find something you like and have a passion for that modification, because this is your lifestyle, diet, exercise, choose something you love. Partner up, get that girlfriend, that boyfriend, that husband, your children, get everybody in the family involved. Stress management, which is linked to exercise and meditation, counseling, and so forth. Know your risk factors and work on the ones that we can modify, and make sure you understand the ones you can't modify so you're prepared for what may or may not happen in your health profile. I thank you so, so much for your time. And I welcome any amount of questions that you have for me.
Okay, so about this time, we'll open the floor for any questions that our attendees might have. But in the meantime, I guess if I had to ask a question to get the ball rolling, what would you say is an ideal rating for your blood sugar?
Right. So ideal, like let's say your fasting would be below 110, and
Okay.
2 hours after a meal below 150. That's ideal, ideal, ideal. Now, if you're diabetic, Asha, I like to say to diabetics, especially the older diabetics, I don't go too strict on them because life is short. And then sometimes they've been having such high sugars that their body's accustomed to that sugar. So we give them a little higher than the 110, maybe to 120 fasting, and a little higher than the 2 hour. But ideally, 110 fasting, below 110, and 2 hours after a meal, 150 should be the ideal. And your HbA1c below 6, ideally, but I'll take between 6 and 7 in a diabetic. Yeah?
Yes. Okay, thanks for that. I see we have Mariella Pavi with a question.
Yeah, sure.
Can you
Hi,
just
good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Right. Question. I don't know if I missed it because I stepped away for a moment. Is diabetes a hereditary disease or not?
Yes. So we have two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2, and both have some genetic linkage. Type 1 is juvenile diabetes. It may or may not have as much genetic linkage as type 2 diabetes. Type 2 definitely is hereditary, has a hereditary factor. But again, like for example, my maternal relatives are diabetic, my maternal grandparents, but that doesn't mean that I will be diabetic, but I do have that in my back pocket as a risk factor. So I have to then combat that by having a healthier lifestyle. So there is a genetic linkage and risk factor to diabetes.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome.
Okay, does anyone else have a question? Well, I guess as a filler question, what I would like to find out, even for myself, is, what kind of vitamins could you take that, I don't know if it could help in preventing? I know you've mentioned some of the home remedies that people could use. I also know that when my dad was diabetic, when he was younger, he used, I think it's the okra water that he would drink, the slimy okra water. Is there is there any kind of like vitamin that you could take to prevent or help with diabetes?
To prevent, no, but so it really depends on what you like. So for example, I am not a pill popper, so I tend to try and have my vitamins and my nutrients through my food. So I look at the quality of food. Now there are some micronutrients that you can't always get through the food sometimes, and they can include things like zinc, lecithin, CoQ10, that you can get, but you might not get as much. So to be very honest, Asha, it depends on my state of life, like what's happening at that time, that I may choose a vitamin. But usually I recommend a multivitamin to all patients. And you have to look at the quality of the multivitamin because you want all the vitamins in there. You want your D, your E, your A, your K, you want your calcium, your magnesium. Sometimes we need, for example, if you have what we call a neuropathy, like you're getting tingling and numbness because you're diabetic, then you want some B complex to help combat that and preserve the nerves, right? So it really depends on the patient and what they're looking for. But I can't say this enough, that I really want us to try and eat properly. Yeah. But I understand the cost that comes with, and so we have to then try our best to mitigate and go on those waters. You know what I mean? Like, Easter time kingfish costing a lot. So, we have to go with the flow, but beans and using our ground provisions, understanding that and eating, because we're so, we can't allow any more, dare I say, degradation of our eating habits. You know what I mean? Because when we used to eat good, and Tanti used to make coconut oil, and we used to eat our stuff, and then all of a sudden we became modern, right? And people told us that it was wrong. And now guess what? We buying coconut oil from Philippines. You understand? Because they said Tanti shouldn't make the coconut oil and we shouldn't have it. All of a sudden, you understand where I'm coming from? So we now have to, as a developing region, take back our soil. This is why we're saying to the tobacco companies, we need food. We don't need tobacco, right? Use the earth and plant good food for us. Let food production really be renovated and restored in the Caribbean. Yeah, to get our vitamins. I get all passionate when it comes to food. Sorry.
Yes, I see Mariella. Is that Mariella has her hand up?
Yes, yes.
Mariella?
Yes. Next question. I know I hear persons say drink a lot of water, that could help, with the diabetes and so forth. Is it a myth, or is it that water, a lot of water intake can help in terms of
Yeah.
diabetes?
Yeah. So um, I'm so scared to answer that, But they had on TikTok the other day because I'm a TikTok addict right now, and I admit it. I probably need to go to TikTok Anonymous. But where they had patients died of water intoxication. You know what I mean? So this is where I want to make sure the caveat is understood of moderation and balance being key. So water is needed at all levels. We need water because water is needed from the basic cellular level for metabolism and to make our energy, right? So with glucose and water, that's how, with the carbohydrates and water, that's how we get glucose and our carbon dioxide. That's a basic equation and reaction. And we all know it who studied science, right? Integrated science and bio. So we need water, but it doesn't mean that water will decrease your chance of diabetes, because you remember what I told you one of your signs and symptoms was excessive thirst, right? So because your blood sugar is so high that the kidney is saying, OMG, you have syrup going through here. I need to dilute it. So then the kidney reabsorbs. And when the kidney reabsorbs, the kidney says, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh gosh, I'm trying to get rid of this. And then the kidney says, look, she needs to drink more water because I don't have no more to help dilute this nonsense. So that is where water comes in. But water can't prevent diabetes. So I can't drink 5 gallons of water and hope not to get diabetes. I'll get water intoxication because my kidneys can't handle all the water taken. So this is where moderation is key. And we have to have, and I mean, really, we should have the usual 8 to 10 glasses of water. Yeah, I like to say put some cucumbers in the water, put some mint or some cinnamon in the water. So you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're helping your sugar cravings. You're helping you're getting a little cooling if you want. If that's what you think from a Chinese medicine perspective, we're nourishing the kidney yin. So that is where water comes in. But water is not going to prevent or treat diabetes.
Okay, so I see Tennille has a question in the chat box. She says, my H1 was 11, then it reduced to 6 at my last test, but it's a bit difficult to eat the recommended breakfast since it is expensive to eat healthy. So true.
So you see what I tell you? But you see, my question to Tennille is, what is the recommended breakfast? What were you given? You understand? So why can't, what are you thinking is a recommended breakfast of eggs, of toasted peanut butter, or what Asha ate, or some dal and rice, some kitchery, or having food from the night before as a breakfast, beans, so that is the problem. And that is our reality as well. And that is what we have to call on our leaders and our policymakers to understand, that it's a catch-22. You can't come out and tell the public, fight the fat, exercise, eat right, and then you ain't giving them money to buy it. You understand? You're taxing me out the wazoo, are paying NIB, you want to do, and I mean, the list goes on, but you're with a credit union, so you understand the scene. So, so the reality is that I understand that it can be expensive, but we do have to become creative. You can't miss a meal. You understand? And this is why we're asking not to sell poor products cheaper, so that the average man is going to buy the cheaper product. This is why we're fighting for front of package labeling, where we have big octagonal labels saying, yo, this has too much sugar, because they're adding too much sugar to the foods. And that is causing a craving and an addiction. And that is causing diabetes as well. So really and truly, a webinar like this may get me in trouble, but this is where you go out and we all come en masse and say to our policymakers, help us fix this problem. Because how much talking we gonna do? How much times you gonna hear NCDs kill most people? Please behave, and nobody helping us. We have to know how we gonna do it. You understand? So we have to try and demand from the people we put in power to make those policies that will allow us to have more available foods, affordable foods, to have a healthy environment for less stress, to have the ability to work out. You understand? When I get up and I have to be on the road at 4 o'clock in the morning, where I get in stress management, you must be done cussing me when you hear I say that in the webinar and saying this blasted woman. You understand? But that is the reality. So we ourselves have to, and I'm very, very serious when I say this, individually, we have to try and make that change and demand that from our policymakers as well to allow for that to happen.
Yes. I mean, one tip I could give too is that being a finance person, one of the things I do is I budget, and then I monitor, monitor, monitor. So it's like, you allocate yourself a certain amount of money, and it's difficult when you have families and you have children and things to take care of. Thankfully, well, I mean, I shouldn't say that way, but I'm single. So I could spend money on myself, right? I could afford the little blueberries and stuff, but it is very expensive. And sometimes you have to weigh, you know, nice to have, must have, and you check to see what exactly you prioritize in your life. And that's exactly what you are going to spend your money on. So, I mean, it's difficult. That being said, it is a challenge as well, as you rightfully said, right? So is there anyone else who would like to ask a question at this point?
And Asha, like how you say, prioritize until we get the question, because sometimes people will buy a carnival costume for $4,000, but not
Yeah,
eat properly. You
eat properly.
understand?
Then,
Or
yes.
and how much is a beer and how much is a cigarette? So we have to look at those choices that we make. There are
Mm-hmm.
questions in the Q&A. They're saying, oh,
Oh, sorry. Okay, let me see Q&A. Um, okay. Yes, I'm seeing two questions. So the first one is from Camille Samuel. Are children's sedentary lifestyle putting them at a higher risk of being diagnosed with diabetes?
oh yes, Camille, definitely. Because this is why we're trying to get children to start exercising from an earlier age. And the walkathons happen to raise money, but get them active. You do the extracurricular, because we need children to exercise. The more sedentary they are, the more prone they are, because again, that's their lifestyle. And we want you not to be sedentary. So they are more prone to diabetes along with their poorer lifestyle choices, for sure.
And then now I've realized that a lot of parents just give the kids devices so they're not running and playing as they used to outside. It's like a
Sit
device,
down,
every device.
sit down and shut up. The babies walk out the uterus with the iPad and then they continue onwards. So, so it's,
Yes.
and then, I mean, it's our crime, the crime in the country, the time you get
Mm,
home. So there are a lot of things that we need to tweak really and truly when it comes to our lifestyles.
yes. So Camille also has another question. Does gestational diabetes mean you are at a higher risk of being a full-blown diabetic as you get older?
Yes, gestational diabetes is a type of diabetes. Camila, I actually forgot to mention that. And therefore, you get it during your pregnancy. They
Right.
notice that your blood sugar is not controlled properly. And then when you give birth, they have to monitor you for a couple months or a year after to make sure you don't turn diabetic. But it is a risk factor for becoming diabetic.
Okay. Okay, so does anyone have any more questions? Let me just check back the chat. I'm not seeing anything.
And I think it's important to understand, Asha, that when we speak of diabetes and sugar, we've been hearing that. I'm sure you know about that long, right? You used to hear, I have a touch of sugar, a touch of this. You can't have a touch. You understand? It's all or nothing. But that doesn't mean you need medication all the time, or you will die, or you'll have complications. This is where you're proactive and you can make those changes to your lifestyle. And that is the importance of this. You understand? The
Mhm.
importance of us saying to you and debunking the myths and saying, eating some pickle Karaili every day. Karaili has, instead of buying some extract of Karaili, we have the blooming Karaili in the market. You understand?
Mhm.
The name, the Tulsi. So understanding your family history, knowing how to eat, having the teas, starting from a younger age to be proactive is key to fighting all these
Yeah,
lifestyle diseases. Much, much, much. You
that is
understand?
so true. Yeah, that is true. I mean, I myself come from a diabetic family, both parents diabetic. So, I mean, one thing that I would say is a major take home too is having the diary as you were talking about, keeping like a chart, recording how often your blood sugar levels are at different points. And I know I've slacked off with that. So I think that's the one take home, probably because I'm now in my 40s. So, as you rightfully say, everything just kind of goes out when during that
Yeah,
time.
you understand. So and you know, look at it like if you get a cut, is the cut not healing fast enough like it
Right,
used to? You're getting more urinary tract infections. You're feeling real thirsty. So these are little things that are niggling and warning. You know, it doesn't mean that if you're not diabetic, you're gonna check your sugar every day. You know what I mean? But oh gosh, at least once a week, if you have parents diabetic and you ain't eating and doing right, check it once every 2 weeks
yeah.
even. Give it a little go. You know, I mean, when I was in the hospital with COVID and they tell me, oh, your sugar is 230, you're diabetic, I had to say, full stop, wait, please behave. You know what I mean? So you have to understand your context, understand your numbers, but don't be afraid to see it because there are ways to combat it through lifestyle modification that does
Yeah.
not have to include medication.
Agreed. And that is also a next big take home, lifestyle modification. Being able to
Yeah.
change what you do daily. And it is just forming good habits and being able to stick to it. Because sometimes we start off real gung ho and then, well, by next 2 weeks we finish.
Because we start off gung ho, that you said it
Yeah.
right there. We didn't do it in moderation. I like a chocolate cake. I like a drink or two. But so it's how we do it and the small changes. For example, I'm Cuban by birth and so love my coffee. But I used to like condensed milk in my coffee, evap milk, make it like a good Suradura. You understand? But now I slowly bringing it down and now I drink black coffee with cinnamon. You understand? When I
Mhm.
drink some coffee with sugar is once a month. You understand? So these are
Right, right,
things
right.
that you have to retrain your taste buds. And that is
Yeah,
a problem that we grew up on the UHT milk. We grew up on all these things with added sugars that didn't tell us that they were adding the sugar. They had it
yeah.
so small on the packaging you couldn't read it. You understand? And now we get older, we still can't read it. And so we now need to retrain our taste buds and say, listen, you know was it eat a nice fresh salad with cucumber and mint and some tomatoes and some chana. You understand? With
Mm.
and instead of the creamy salad dressing, you put some vinegar and olive oil, a little chili
Mhm.
flakes, and bam, you're
Yeah,
good. Right?
yeah.
So look at those options, pickle the Karaili. So then the vinegar from that Karaili with the pepper. Oh, my mouth
Mhm.
watering already. You understand? Your pump saute when it's ready with the salt. So those are things we have to look at, you know. We and don't overeat the fruits because fruits are great, but fruits have sugar, fructose. And so we
Right.
can't overeat the fruits, right? And a
Mhm.
diabetic can't eat a bucket of mango. They can't eat a bucket of starch every day when mango season
Yeah.
comes. They have to look at that. So these are things that we have to look at, and just moderation is key. So because you said it right, it's your lifestyle. You can't go gung ho. So you see Christmas coming. After Christmas and the ham, the hops, the punchy cream, and everything. New Year's resolution to lose 15 pounds by January. And then you lose 15 and then you gain 30. You understand? Carnival coming. And you ain't eating, you're fainting and all kind of thing. And then after carnival, all hell break loose and your belt can't fit you. So let us do it slowly and in moderation.
In moderation. So I know nobody else has been asking any questions, but what about intermittent fasting in terms of diabetes? Would you say how is that connected? Like
Can I
with
tell you, I have been trying different diets, right? Because I want to see what my patients are talking about and I want to see if it makes difference. And I've
right.
researched these diets, right? And of all the diets I have tried and looked at, I must say that I appreciate intermittent fasting. I am I would like to not say a convert, but I practice intermittent fasting right now. And I did it because I was trying to gain a healthier weight because of my lifestyle and where I was at. And I'd reached a plateau. And I thought, how do I break through this plateau? Because I'm working out like a dog, I'm lifting weights, but I ain't going down. So, and
Yes,
I
yes.
said, let me try this. And I slowly tried it. And I must say, I don't do every day. I do 3 days on, 2 days off, and that's a good thing. You don't have to do 16 hours like I do. You can do less hours or you could do more hours, depending on how crazy you feel. But you
Mm.
feel a difference. You do feel more energy. Yes, to me, my appetite has decreased. Yeah, I could used to be able to eat a house. Now I don't do that. And you make healthier choices because you have a smaller window in which to eat. So I definitely think it helps, and I have seen some of my diabetic patients using it. And so intermittent fasting, somebody's asking what is intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is where we actually don't eat for a certain amount of time. We only drink water, coffee, tea, no sugar, no milk, preferably. And then we have a window in which to eat. And when we eat basically we try to eat as healthy as possible, but we put carbs in there, protein in there, vegetables in there. So for example, if you do a 16-8 fast, I do not eat. So when I finish this webinar, I will have my dinner, and then by 7:30, I assume, or 8 o'clock, I won't eat. I'll only drink water or tea or coffee, and then I don't eat again until 8 plus 8 is 12 plus 4. So I won't eat till midday tomorrow. And then I
Wow.
break my fast with some dal or some miso soup or some cereal like you do with the oats. I like personally, because it's 12 o'clock, I like a chia seed with almond milk and yogurt
Yeah.
and so a little tip of honey, because well, I still have a sweet tooth sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I put some berries or some mango or some passion fruit, depending on the fruit. I may or may not use the honey. And then I have my lunch, but I don't get hungry to say, and to graze all the time, and then I
Yeah.
have a snack and then my lunch and then my dinner again, and we repeat again. But I do find it intermittent fasting helps, and especially diabetics, Asha. Diabetics, who are, especially those that are not on insulin, they should eat. And that's what we tell them, because when they don't eat, when you put your body in this false sense of starvation, right?
Right.
Like when you skipping meals out the wazoo, eating one meal a day and thinking that's it, and you're eating one big meal like a king a day and all of that, then what happens is your body says, you hear what? Asha in starvation. So the next time she take that food, we store in that as fat, because
Fat.
that can give us more calories when she running out, because your brain needs glucose. Your brain can't function on anything
Mhm.
else. And the brain gets the glucose from breaking down the fats and the proteins and the carbs. So the brain says to the body, Asha starving, she in famine. Soon as she eats, save that. You
Mhm.
understand? So
Right.
intermittent fasting is different because you fast, but then you're eating multiple small meals during your eating period. And that is where it's
Okay.
helpful. Yeah?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
religious reasons, 6-6, should this not be done? Is that 6 fasting and 6 eating? No, religious. I can't tell you don't fast for religious reasons. I always too late for Ramadan, because I keep saying I will try to fast. Oh, 6 to 6. Yes, those are good hours. So that's a 12-hour fast. So
Yeah.
12 fast, 12 on to eat. So that is healthy as well. So there's no reason, but people do it for religious reasons. So they're not doing it to cut weight. They may lose some weight and some muscle tone.
Mhm.
So and
Mhm.
then the reality is, Asha, if I'm fasting during that fasting window, I may not do my heavy weight days. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I may
Right.
not be able to maintain that. So that's
Right.
why I do 3 days on, 2 days off. So you really have to see how you feel about it. Like my
Mhm.
husband, he did a 36-hour the other day. I told him he was crazy. But I am not doing 36 hours of no food. Yeah. But you can have water, you can have your green tea, you could have your mint tea, you could have Earl Grey, choose your teas. You could have a nice Tulsi with chamomile, cinnamon
Mhm.
tea, and I think it changes your perspective on food. You know, the addiction and the obsession of food is changed. And I
Yeah.
found now you could pass me with a chocolate cake and I may gain just half a pound versus 5. I love a good chocolate cake, but now I'm not eating a whole slice. I'm having a sliver, right?
Yeah.
Um, so those are things. Tennille, if your doctor told you to stop fasting, I can't tell you no that your doctor crazy, but I would have to understand why they told you to
Right.
stop fasting, because it's not it depends on what is going on. And if it's that you're on insulin, then that may be a reason they're telling you not to fast, because
Yeah.
if you take the insulin in the morning, you do need to have something to eat. So it really depends on your individual circumstance. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. I've seen a comment from Camille Samuel. She said, culturally, our diet, what we eat in most households, is usually high in sugar, which is true.
So you know what happened? I was thinking about it, and I had a patient today. He's 82, and I said to him, what do you eat? And his friend who lives with him says, give him anything brown. Stew chicken with sugar, stew beef, stew pork, and rice. And I laugh at that, because our diet, we could modify our recipes. The macaroni pie don't have to have as much sticks of margarine. We could
Yeah,
use real butter and not a lot. You understand? You don't have to
right.
use big spoons of white sugar only in the sorrel. You could switch it up a little bit. You understand? So
Mm-hmm.
we ourselves, I'll never forget. So I'm Guyanese, and we make a dish called pepper pot. I don't know anybody in the audience who understands that, and that's made from an
Yeah.
extract of cassava called casrip, which y'all sell here, but it's not a real casrip, but that's a different topic. So anyways, so I grew up eating pepper pot, right? And pepper pot is an Amerindian dish. So we have oxtail and pig and pork and trotters and thing in our pepper pot, and we slurping that down every weekend with some good white bread. But then we get older, and then my grandmother, who I love dearly, God rest her soul, said to me, I need to make it healthier. So then we start using oxtail with some turkey, or
Mm-hmm.
turkey alone, and therefore we're decreasing the fat content. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
then instead of all the sugar in the pepper pot, we use the ginger and the cinnamon. So you get that sweetness brought out
Mm-hmm.
without the pound of sugar, right? So we have to modify it. And I think it's important as well to modify our diets now, because culturally, what happened is our diets were also bastardized. Yeah.
Mm.
Because more and more our taste buds were changed due to poor foods that we got, and therefore it needed more sugar and more salt. So now
Salt.
we have to retrain. You
Mm.
understand? Because if you taste a really good Creole dish with the seasoning and the meat
Mm-hmm.
marinated and cooked, and you remember when you used to put the chicken to soak for a whole day, to soak in, as the
Yes,
Trinidadians
yes,
say,
yes, yes.
and get it soaking, then you had a lovely tasting meal. The problem
Yes.
is your food fresh if you don't put the sugar and you know what I mean? So you have to get the time.
Mhm.
So that's meal prep and stuff. So Camille, I think it's about each of us looking at what we put into the pot. I'm sorry, I get so excited about food because I cook and
Yes, yes. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more questions. I'm not sure if anybody else has any questions, but we are way over the hour.
oh, are
So
we? Oh my God.
yes, it's 7 minutes past already, an hour. So I guess at this point in time, I want to say special thank you to Dr. LeBlanc. Am I pronouncing it correct?
Yes,
LeBlanc,
yes, yes, yes,
right?
yes. Well,
Okay,
my husband will tell you LeBlanc, but it's okay.
LeBlanc. Right, so special thank you to you today for facilitating our webinar. And I enjoyed it a lot. It was very interesting and also very interactive. You are very lively as a presenter, so I enjoyed it very much. And I am sure, like I'm seeing somebody type in something. Yes, somebody said very interesting. And next person put very informative. Looking forward to more in the future, so we could probably talk about other webinars that we could do, right?
Yes,
But this one
definitely.
specifically was about diabetes awareness, and I have some take homes as well for myself personally. So I'm sure everybody did. Great session. Thanks. Yes.
No, you're
So at this
most
point,
welcome.
yes. So at this point, we have come to the end of today's session, and I want to thank everyone for attending, and I wish everyone a good night. Okay, so have a good night, everyone.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, bye.